I'm excited, guys. You want to know why I'm excited?
Why are you excited?
Because we actually have a sponsor. We have our first sponsor, and it is deadcanvas.com. And so they're a group of really talented artists, t-shirts and stickers, necklaces, and a lot of amazing original artwork. Everyone has a juggalo in their life.
For you guys, it's me.
And if you ask me, I never know what to buy my juggalo or juggalette friends. So a lot of the artists on Dead Canvas are members of the Dark Carnival, you would say. They roll with
some great Malenko vibes.
Some great Malenko vibes for sure. But I just wanted to make sure that we give a shout out to J-Rock is going to be our featured artist from them of the week. He is at 8 up art on Instagram and Dead Canvas, and Instagram at Dead Canvas Art is their address. So look forward to featuring some more artists from them on our podcast, and we just want to say thank you very much, and welcome to the Absurd and Report podcast family. Welcome to Absurd and Report Podcast. I'm Derek.
I'm Josh.
I'm Nicole.
This is gonna be a doozy. I'm really excited on this one. I hardly ever say that this is gonna be a good episode, but this is gonna be a really good episode.
I did a lot of fucking research on this one, so I think it's gonna be a good one.
Josh read an entire book.
Oh, wow.
Wow, I didn't know you could read books.
And it wasn't a little book either.
Yeah,
it was about 500 pages.
It's a little under 500 pages. I think it was like 470, something like that.
And it's on something that I think any highly profiled UFO cases are usually pretty well documented online, multiple sources. This was a little bit different.
It was hard to find, like, that's why I had to buy the book. And just so everyone knows, the book itself is called Witnessed by Bud Hopkins, and it's about an incident that's widely referred to as the Brooklyn Bridge UFO abductions. Like you were saying, it was really hard to just find interviews with anyone that it was about, any outside info besides interviews with the actual guy that wrote the book. Somehow he got obsessed with the phenomenon of alien abductions because he just noticed a bunch of bizarre patterns in it.
We can all relate. I think everyone in this room can relate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fucking absolute dork about sitting around watching YouTube videos and documentaries and movies about aliens.
I can't do it by myself sometimes.
It's fucking creepy stuff.
Sometimes I'm like, are they watching me right
That's
now?
what blows my mind about this case that he came up with.
Interdimensional beings. They could be here and I wouldn't even know
that's what blows my
it.
mind about this case that he came up with is it's something that has just an absurd amount of evidence and witnesses to, and no movie ever got made about it. You never see it in like a.
And these days, that's kind of like the nail in the coffin. Yeah. Oh, they didn't even make a movie about it.
Well, I'm just saying,
maybe you should make a movie about it.
When this book came out was the mid '90s, especially when movies like that were getting cranked out. Like Fire in the Sky being the main example of.
That terrified me.
It's a fucking scary-ass movie.
And I saw it, when I was younger.
I don't think I've seen Fire in the Sky.
Well, it's a very realistic abduction sequence.
Yeah. I like the fourth kind.
Fourth kind, think fourth kind, but not, they didn't even really know their audience for that movie, I feel like. So it was more of like a horror vibe.
It's pretty scary,
D.B. Sweeney, though. Great actor.
Also from the movie Spawn.
Also from the movie The Cutting Edge.
Yeah. But, so yeah, basically, Bud Hopkins, when he started getting into this alien stuff, he ended up writing a book about it called Missing Time in the early 80s, which got fairly popular.
First book?
That's his first book on this subject that he wrote. And then in the later 80s, in like 87, he wrote a book called Intruders that became really highly popular, and that was just about the common threads in alien abduction stories, essentially.
Okay.
And then
kind of setting the stage for more documentation.
Yeah.
So if things keep reoccurring, he's going to be the guy that is going to notice a pattern.
Yeah, and he basically kind of just gave up his art career and just started focusing on this shit, And then both the books did really well, and because of Intruders, he started getting a lot of letters from other people that had, abduction phenomenon happen to them, and missing time and fucking weird half memories of little gray dudes experimenting on them, doing genetic tests.
He struck a chord.
Yeah, so because people started to hit him up, he formed this thing called the Intruders Foundation, and it was based out of Manhattan.
Climbing in your window,
Hiding your people. Say, hide your kids, hide your kids.
All right. So a little after he founds the organization, he one woman he gets a letter from, who he refers to as Linda Cortile in the book, Linda Napolitano.
Napolitano.
So she wrote him a letter, and they had never known each other, but she read Intruders.
Okay.
And it just started to spur all these fucking weird memories, like hidden memories with her. And so she wrote him a letter about it in April 1989, saying like, hey, I experienced some of this phenomenon that you talk about, the missing time, phasing through walls and getting sucked up into spaceships, having, memories being experimented on, and like aliens doing sociological experiments with her and like other people. And so he kind of files it with all of his other shit. And then he gets another letter from her at the end of the year, and it's about how she remembers basically like, your three stereotypical gray aliens kidnapping her out of her Brooklyn apartment and getting sucked out the window with them, and then going up into some blue beam into a spaceship while she's like frozen.
This is the abduction.
Yeah, this is the incident itself. This is what this whole story ends up being based around. So,
gotcha. And this story, from what I could see, you did more research than I think the rest of us on this, but from what I could tell is that it really does check all the boxes for your almost unbelievable UFO story. Not in the sense that it's not a believable instance, but it is truly it's out there. It is far. It's out.
Basically like when I was reading the book, it just gets more and more fucking ridiculous and disturbing while you're reading it.
Well, let's start from that point, from the abduction.
Yeah, so the actual abduction took place on November 30th, 1989 at 3 a.m. And essentially her apartment is kind of off of Manhattan's FDR Drive, and that's where the other witnesses come into the incident, which, Bud didn't realize that, he didn't even realize there were other witnesses to this. So he's just kind of like casually investigating it, talking to her on and off. And then he gets a letter that's, it's untraceable, doesn't have a return address, anything like that. And this was this was almost 2 years later. This is in like February 91. And he gets a letter from two guys that claim that they were undercover cops and that they were on, I believe, the middle level of the Brooklyn Bridge when they witnessed this. But they said that they were on an undercover thing and they were staking things out, apparently. And they see this fucking glowing disc, like, just appear over this apartment building, like, in their line of sight. Like, they're only maybe a couple blocks from this thing. Okay. And they start looking at it, and it's, like, pulsating red and yellow and shit.
So close enough to see pretty damn clearly what's...
They both... One of the guys... his drawing of the incident is in the book. Well, one of his drawings of it is. And they see this fucking woman get sucked out a window with these three little fucking mutant, giant-headed, gray small guys.
Through a window, meaning...
Like they phase through the window.
Through the glass.
Yeah, like the window itself, they describe it later in the book as, Bud Hopkins ends up meeting the woman a bunch of times and, interviews her family and does a lot of hypnosis sessions with her, but he analyzed the window and he's like, there's no way if, like, a person could squeeze through this thing. Because, you know, it's a New York City apartment building. Like, they on purpose don't build shit big enough so you can go, like, commit suicide.
Or
have, like,
fall, accidents happen.
And I think there were bars in front of the window as well.
Well,
makes sense for New York City.
Yeah, so they see her
Especially
get sucked out of the window, and there's, like, 3 of these grays with her, and they're, like, around her in a triangle. And she's, like, in her, like, nightgown and shit, just, like, frozen with a blue beam. And they said they watched her get sucked up into the middle of it. And the, the letter doesn't really reveal much else besides that. But
the initial letter that she wrote.
Yeah. So and then basically, Bud had called her up and warned her to be like, these undercover cops might come visit you and ask you a couple questions about this incident. They told me they're planning to visit you or whatever. So they go there, and both of them are kind of having a weird nervous breakdown when they're at her house and being, sketchy and weird and not showing a badge, not really telling what organization they're from.
Mm-hmm.
And, then Bud starts to get other letters from them. And the other letters, they kind of reveal that they're not actually cops. They were, he doesn't know if they're CIA or not, but they were...
Private security?
Yeah, they were guarding a politician who they refer to him as the quote-unquote third man in the incident. And eventually he kind of figures out who the politician is. He still doesn't name him in the book, but I mean, if you look it up, it's widely believed to be a United Nations secretary from Peru at the time. This guy, General Javier Perez de, I believe the last name was Cuellar. And so, these guys start having fucking flashbacks to weird shit that happened that night, and they realize that their car, like their motorcade, because they're in a whole motorcade of politicians going towards the UN building. All their cars stopped, and then these guys see that happen, and then they both black out.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they, they keep having weird snippets of memories. Like, the way they remembered it originally is that the woman and the aliens disappear up into the vehicle, and then they watch the vehicle plunge into the river below the bridge.
The UFO.
Yeah.
Kind of just takes a detour right into the East River.
Yeah. So these guys just start, like, really kind of going off the wall and, like, harassing the woman, harassing Linda more and more, and then writing more letters to Bud Hopkins that are just, revealing more bizarre shit every single time. And it gets to a point where they tell him of this incident where after their blackout, they woke up on, like, a nearby, like, riverbank off of, I don't remember, what's the fucking name of the river?
That's the East River.
Yeah, East River, yeah. And they said the politician was on top of the car, and they're both sitting in the sand. And that woman is standing there, like, under mind control, collecting soil samples with the aliens in front of them. And one of them tried to pull their gun on her, and he just froze immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And she started, according to them, while the Grays are walking around her, she starts flipping out on them, and she, like, holds up, like, a dead fish and is, like, yelling about, like, ecological concerns at them, like...
Don't they call her the Lady of the Sands?
Yeah, the incident in the book is consistently referred to as the Lady of the Sands.
And if I'm not mistaken, when you said that she was flipping out on them, was she doing it telepathically?
Yeah, I think they said that they were hearing it in their head.
Yeah. I love a good telepathy experience.
And these two agents, they never really tell you their real names, but they refer to them as Richard and Dan.
And Dan.
So Dan tries to pull a gun on her, gets frozen.
Classic Dan.
Yeah, this is textbook Dan. But then, that incident happens with her, and then they watch all of them, her and the aliens, pile into that ship and blast into the river. And they don't remember this for a long time, And she didn't remember it either at first. And where shit gets weird is after, Bud got those letters from them, he basically did a hypnosis session with her, didn't tell her about any of the content in the letters whatsoever.
Here we go. This is the repressed hypnosis.
There's no way she would have known any of this. And she tells him the exact same scenario, but from her point of view.
And I think this is a great spot to reiterate the fact that out of all of the notes and all of the summaries that I found of this book and all the accounts, one thing that is very, very clear, and it's repeated, is that Bud always kept these witness accounts completely separate.
Yep, that's his main goal, is to, if he met someone else that he thought was involved in the scenario, he wouldn't tell them any of the details at all.
Nope.
He'd get a report from them first, and then he'd do like a hypnosis session with them, and then connect the dots in between.
So not like no parlor tricks where you're leading. I think that's like, was that the giant douche John Edwards?
Yeah. Well, he would do leading in the hypnosis sessions, but he'd do it in the opposite way, just to see.
Oh, so he'd like do misinformation.
Just to see if he's going to get the same story out of them, and
Fascinating.
So her story ended up checking out as the same fucking shit, basically. And the two fucking dudes, the CIA guys or whatever you want to call them, become obsessed with her. They I guess both of them kept writing them letters, and they start to think she's like an alien hybrid of some kind because of the incident where they said that she was with aliens, digging up samples.
And to be fair, it'd be a pretty hard night to shake off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's something that not only traumatizes you.
Yeah.
But completely shatters what you understand of the real fucking world.
Pretty much, yeah.
It just kicks it down the street in a can, and now you're left picking up the pieces of your fucking just broken subconscious or conscious. You've been and then not to mention that they think they've been tampered with physically by these aliens. I didn't really get much in terms of like experimentation, but more just experiences.
Oh, I'm gonna get into that.
Let's hear it. I can't wait.
Well, I mean, Linda had an X-ray a couple years before that, and they noticed a metal implant up her right nostril, I believe.
This was post-abduction.
Yeah, there's an X-ray of it in the book. They put the X-ray in the actual book, and you can see there's like a little mini rod up in her nasal cavity. And a couple days before she was going to go get it like removed, like physically taken out of her face, her whole family woke up at once during the night, and they're all bleeding out of the same nostril. And then she went and got the X-ray, and the thing wasn't there anymore. So I don't know. The theory is whatever the fuck put it up there knew she was going to get it removed and have it analyzed, and they didn't want that to happen, so they got it fucking. They probably took it out of her nose if the incident's real. Bud just starts to wonder, if this was in Brooklyn, there must be other people that saw it.
Never not anyone right there.
Yeah. So he just, he basically waited and started getting letters from a couple other people that were like, yeah, I saw this incident happen. And they kept describing the same incident. All people had never met each other. Some of them range from like a woman being like, yeah, I went into a trance and I got led down the street just in a trance and no one else was moving around me. That's like a common theme, by the way. Like time will freeze around you while this happens, and no one ever sees it happen. So this one woman claims that she went into a trance and also got abducted, but she watched that happen before they abducted her as well.
So this is a potential mass abduction.
Yeah, that's the other thing. And then it's pretty much a mass abduction. And then there was a couple other people on, this gets revealed much later, that were on the highway that rode in, that were like, yeah, all the cars stopped, and we saw this shit happen. One woman was like, I thought it was a movie that was being filmed.
Wow.
Yeah, which is ludicrous, obviously.
Yeah. I was like, how do you think that's a movie being filmed?
Yeah. So, and everyone described the same way. They're like, this thing, they didn't see it fly up. They saw it appeared,
I see.
It was all of a sudden just the pulsating fucking red disc in the air. And one of the most fucked up things about the book is they kind of have some drawings that various people did of the way they saw it. And they all did a really similar drawing. They all draw the building the same. Multiple people draw the way she came out of the building the same.
Fetal position.
Yeah, fetal position with like an alien above her and then like two below her, like in a triangle. And everyone like drew her dressed the same way, like in her nightgown. Drew the Greys the same way, drew the spaceship the same way. So, like you said, it starts to point to mass abduction phenomenon.
And let's point out, not a whole lot of motivation for people to just flat out lie to Bud here.
How could you possibly orchestrate a lie of that? He goes into that at the end of the book. He has a thing about people that tried to denounce the case and decry the case, and they're like, oh, clearly this woman had everyone act this out and make this up. But if you think about it, how is some like poor ass New York City mom like gonna afford to pay this many people to create this fucking ruse, and then keep the ruse up between all of these people for years for like,
To gain
what?
nothing. I think a lot of people who have claimed to be taken they've been written off as kooks.
Yeah.
I think MUFON was just formed in 87.
Yeah, it was definitely brand new at the time.
Which Absurd and Report podcast, proud members of MUFON officially now.
I'm gonna show my badge like I'm in an episode of Supernatural.
Yeah, just go do whatever you want.
Now, you might have to make those badges yourself. I only signed us up for...
We already contemplated.
Yeah, I was going to say, you
it.
only signed up the podcast, so we're not even going to get fucking individual badges. So
We already knew this.
It's the information I'm after. Make your own lanyards.
That's why I love when Henry Zabrowski from Last Podcast on the Left talks about being a member of that organization and how they just fucking... Those guys will just roll around with their badges and fucking interrupt actual crime scenes. And people don't realize at first that they don't work for the government because they actually have a badge. And then they're like, hey, what the fuck? Like, you just wanted to MUFON? Get the fuck out of here.
MUFON.
You're just an alien nerd?
Yeah, wait, you're just some fucking dork. Like, you might as well have one of those fake sheriff badges from the toy store, like with your name written on it and a marker. So, as he, starts getting more witnesses and gathering more information... These two agents keep sending him fucking letters. The ones from the guy known as Richard start to get pretty weird because he starts to think that he's known her for a long time, and he starts to think maybe he's been part of this abduction phenomenon in conjunction with her the whole time, even though they don't technically know each other.
It looks like just he can't handle it. He's fucking losing his mind.
But the other guy starts going way more fucking whacked out than him.
Dan.
Yeah. Dan is like fucking writing her letters, calling her a half-breed and shit like that. Making weird, vague threats at her.
Harry Potter?
What? I don't get the Harry Potter reference.
Well, because they call being a half-breed was like a...
Muggles.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Muggles.
Yeah, he's basically
Who does this guy think
he's
he
being
is?
racist against her for being part alien.
It sounds like some jealousy. Dan's like, why do you get all the fucking cool shit and I don't get shit?
And they both become like obsessed with her, like they're like half in love with her as well.
Well, if something is so intriguing to you, you become obsessed with it in a way you develop a love for it. At one point, he kidnapped her.
They kidnapped her twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into the kidnappings because I think that's really interesting. I know. So it was shortly thereafter, after the main incident, we can call it. They get go to her apartment.
That's the second incident.
The
first time she kind of doesn't like voluntarily go, but there's like not a struggle, and she doesn't seem very threatened by them the first time.
She's more
where they drive around.
They just drive around and just grill her with weird fucking questions, and they start asking her shit, implying she's like a part of alien. They want to see her like feet because they think when they saw her in that Lady in the Sands incident, they claimed her feet and her hands were like glowing. So,
or gone, I think.
Those two guys worked for the CIA.
They never really verified it, but Bud did some heavy investigation on them, and he found a picture of one of them working security for the president at the time.
Which one was it?
For Bush, I'm pretty sure.
No. Which guy was it?
It was that dude Dan.
Oh,
the one that went, yeah, the one that went real bullshit ass crazy.
Yeah.
And she sees him, and this is after she's getting followed around by random vehicles and shit. And she sees Dan in a crowd, and he's like, "Hey!" And she goes to run away. And he fucking tackles her and throws her in a van, kidnaps her, and drives her to, I believe, Long Island. They get there. He makes her fucking put on this, like, nightgown and, like, do poses for him to see if it'll jog any of his memory, to see if it is, in fact, the same person.
Yeah, he's losing it.
He's fucking out of it at this point. So she tries to escape, and he's, like, chasing her down the fucking beach in the area, just, like, snapping pictures of her while he's running after her. A few of these pictures end up in the book because apparently Richard shows up, saves her from Dan as he's like wrestling her to the fucking ground and kind of molesting her. And, he gets her out of there. He drives her home and just drops her off like nothing fucking happened. And then eventually he sends another letter to Bud. And it's got the photos in it. It's got 2 Polaroids of her just fucking running away, And
he essentially saves her life.
Yeah, the Richard guy kind of saved her life.
Richard saves...
Yeah.
Her.
But Richard also becomes very obsessive. Starts following her around.
Yeah, but something's different with Richard because Richard and her have been like having dreams where they were doing like telepathic shit in the same dreams, and they've been having these dreams since they were kids.
Yeah, since they were like, he was like 10 and she was like 6 or some shit.
So they
like
knew each other through their dreams, and it didn't even connect that they had known each other through their dreams until a certain point when they were older.
And this
after
is when
these abductions started happening.
Yeah, so Richard sends him, some more letters telling him he's remembering all this crap. He doesn't really, I believe he didn't reveal it to Linda immediately, even though he kept having contact with Linda, because he was like kind of half in love with her and shit like that. And he was like obsessed with her kid and thought like maybe with his half kid from this breeding program with aliens. And, so he gets this letter and there's certain information that guy remembers from when he was a kid, meeting this little girl, and they can never remember each other's names.
In his dream.
Yeah, so they make up names for each other, which I believe his name was Mickey and hers was Baby Ann or some bullshit like that.
Okay.
And, Bud doesn't tell Linda this. He does another hypnotherapy session with her, and it starts getting revealed she has the same fucking memories. The same exact shit. Down to, like, what she's dressed like, what he's dressed like, what the room looks like. They said the room would always be some, like, expanded, like, white, like, everything was flat kind of room.
In the white room.
And they said they would generally be, like, two, like, tall, like, freakishly tall, blonde, pale, humanoid-looking
Ginger
creatures.
Bakers.
Yeah, 2 Ginger Bakers are in there.
2 Ginger Bakers. they mapped that track.
Yeah.
Crazy as fuck.
Yeah.
Tall and lanky.
Which, that fits the description of another common abduction theme of
the visitors. Or
people don't always see
Greys.
grays, so a lot of times people see what they call the
Blondies?
Nordic blondes, and they're just like hyper tall, really Nordic, like sharp featured looking, almost humans.
Like Die Hard villain-esque.
Yeah, but
Well, they have like, they just look like, I picture like beautiful Squidward.
yeah. Well, I mean, they always say like that's the other thing is people are always like, oh, they're like really like good looking as well. They just look like a weird, like elongated, like elf kind of person.
Is there any comments as far as eye features?
They said the eyes would be kind of a mix of the two, of like human and your stereotypical grays, the big like almond blank eyes.
So maybe
like,
even
more
like Men in
human-like.
Black-ish, where they're humanoid, but there's distinguishable differences in their facial
Yeah,
features.
yeah.
I
Where
think they're
they won't
getting
look
better.
right. I
Yeah.
think the Men in Black are getting better.
I think they're getting better. I
Yeah.
think they're changing through time.
Yeah.
These-
If anyone wants to know, we're talking about Men in Black. That commonly they're just known as having weird gray skin and like no lips and shit like that.
My favorite cryptid.
Yeah.
I always think, if you know Star Trek Deep Space Nine, there was a guy who had very muted features.
I remember. I haven't seen that show in probably about 2 decades. So.
And I know the Trekkies that are listening will be screaming at their devices when they hear it. I can't remember his name, but you know what I'm talking about. The guy literally looked like he got his face put in a belt sander.
Yeah.
Just real quick.
His
Just
face in a
real
belt
quick.
Just a little zip across the belt
Yeah,
sander.
and it just smoothed things out.
So this kidnapping happens. They start going about their shit again. She's still talking to Richard on and off. Richard definitely sneaks up on her kid on the fucking bus one day and is like grilling her with questions, grilling him with questions, pretending to be a fucking a homeless guy or whatever. Then like basically Bud hires his homie, some ex-military guy, to be her like bodyguard, like part-time.
Security.
Just any free time he has, he can go do it and help her out. She needs to go get groceries, go to the store. Because, she's like your stereotypical, like, Italian New York lady. She's just out smoking cigarettes, going shopping all fucking day. And, that was her main hobby, essentially. She'd get frustrated. She'd go out and shop around the neighborhood. But, she's a tiny-ass lady, so she'd already been kidnapped fucking twice, And then they start noticing this, like, gray van that's just chilling outside her house all the time. Following her around, and it leads to another incident where she runs into Richard in just on the street. She's with her friend. They're like out shopping, and she notices other dudes. Dudes with earpieces in, fucking sunglasses, the suits on. They're at every angle around her, and I think she pulled a gun on him at one point.
So
Snatched
she's
the
packing.
gun. At this point, she's packing and didn't tell anyone that she had a gun and shit. And he snatched it
Well,
out of her
I
fucking
would
hand.
have one too with these two people,
Yep.
assholes, lingering around all the time.
So she just bolts, and I believe he caught up with her, and that's when he snatches a gun from her and fucking he forces her to have a conversation with him again. And it's all shit like him just trying to be like
Come on,
we've
Dan.
He's like, we've known each other since we were like little and like meant to be together stuff, and like I think your kid is actually my son and all this, all this shit like that. And that kind of tapers back after a while, and then it just turns into like he gets updated letters from Richard a bunch more times telling him that Dan went fucking crazy, and Dan gets put in a mental institution.
So he's gone.
He's gone for a while.
We don't really hear about Dan for a while.
He does escape later and tried to pull some other kind of weird kidnapping on him.
As if it couldn't get
But he failed. I believe he failed that time.
Sick Dan.
This is textbook fucking Dan.
He's an asshole.
And then Dan's letters just become threatening weirdo shit, calling her a half-breed again a million times. And
I knew I didn't like that.
And it would range from him like making weird threats at her to him like hitting on her in the letters. Mm-hmm.
He's
very confused individual.
He's just like turned on by the fact that she's an alien and he's not.
Yeah, and he's obsessed with trying to find out if she has like superpowers because of it, all this shit.
So if you're an alien half-breed, does that mean you as a person need to be slept with by an alien, inseminated by an alien, or you have your father's DNA that an alien somehow altered into making you a half-breed?
Well, The Simpsons, I think, taught us anything. It happens in your choice of a setting. I think Marge picked the back of a Cadillac.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
And he just hits a little ray gun, blip, right, like on her temple.
He's wearing,
and he goes, "You're pregnant now."
And he's wearing like a high school football player's jacket.
I'll call you later.
Yeah, and he's like...
What if, like, the things they're implanting you with are not necessarily, like, tracking devices, but they're more or less, like, IUDs. They're, like, they put in your body and they give off hormones that give you these special effects or superpowers, if you will.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any limit to what there's going on as far as experimentation.
Yeah, because it seems like
you dream it. They'll put it in your butt.
Because everyone,
no.
every description of these alien abductions,
I do not consent.
The science behind any of it is it might as well be fucking magic. They can freeze time. Mm-hmm. They can fucking phase through walls.
Yep.
All of these different methods of breeding that you just brought up, those are all factors. Like there's not just one way they do it. Sometimes people are like,
That's the most terrifying thing to me. It's like, it's so terrifying to think that some interdimensional being has their hand,
multiple types.
In my body.
Yeah. That's the other thing is when these abductions happen, people they don't just see fucking greys. Greys seem to be like the worker ants on the chain. You know what I mean? They're just emotionless. They don't have genitals. They don't talk. They don't have a nose.
They're drones.
They're just drones.
Sounds like Men in Black.
So
drones.
So you have them. Here's your common types is what people see.
Okay.
And usually in various scenarios together. So there'll be those ones. There'll be the Nordic ones that we talked about, which seem to be the least asshole-ish of all of them.
Well, the Swedes are pretty gentle.
Yeah.
By nature.
And people say that those ones seem to be more human, so the theory is those are probably part human.
Yeah.
And
Nordic alien.
Yeah, and then there's your insectoid creatures, which are described as a giant mantis-like thing.
Reptilian alien.
That usually seem to be, we're kind of running the show, and are fucking kind of dicks and really cold. And then there's your reptilian aliens, which are fucking asshole fucking rapists.
You think they just have a bad attitude because they look like ass?
Yeah. They just look like shit and their skin's really crusty and painful.
If I were the reptilian alien and I saw the Nordic alien, I'd be jealous as fuck. I'd be like, why the hell you guys look so pretty with your big blonde hair? Or do you think it's like a skin, like they just put on a skin and we don't really know
that seems to be their original form, and they seem to be able to shapeshift, and they
Nordic aliens could be like a chimera between human and...
Yeah, and greys maybe? I don't know. That seems to be the most likely because they usually look like that.
Nothing else in this chart looks like that.
No, it's just greys and Nordics.
And Men in Black are like arguable because they could be just like tulpas.
Yeah, which explain what a tulpa is. I guess most people aren't going to know what that is.
It's pretty much something that's created by the figment of imagination.
But then it becomes real because so many people believe in it.
Yeah. And
We're going to get into that later, for sure.
This
that's
is
a whole separate episode.
this incident for how high end of an alien abduction case is, though, really doesn't have a lot. Nothing really happens with Men in Black in it, which is strange, you know.
Well, we all know, I think the fastest way to discredit someone is to just completely ignore them. And I think that's what they successfully did. There was so much evidence, so much eyewitness accounts, and it all matches up. I think their only recourse was to ignore it so that it didn't vindicate all of these people. And then from there, it could have even been more psychologically damaging to everyone involved.
And like, this isn't even like, it gets even weirder than this with the witnesses. You know, there ends up being like I said, there's a couple people on the bridge that wrote in about it, drew pictures of the incident happening.
Mm-hmm.
Pictures matched fucking other pictures of people they never met, those CIA guys. And then on top of it, like a woman because Linda started going to an abduction support group that Bud led. So these are all people in the support group that don't know each other. And one woman named Marilyn starts to tell him one day about an incident she remembered, and she's like, I think I had an abduction incident, and that woman Linda that I met in the group was there.
Oh boy.
Yeah, which also brings us back to the politician I brought up.
Yes.
Called the Third Man.
Javier?
Who is Javier. I mean,
tell us more about Javier.
They don't, it's never verified in the book, but if the reason that people think it's who it is the way he described him in his accent, what country he's from, and it lines up with a secret kind of UN meeting that was going on in New York City on that same weekend. And that guy starts writing him as well.
Oh boy.
And his memories match up with it. And he starts to have other memories of repeatedly still being abducted in incidents where Linda and her kid are there. And
this is the diplomat.
Yeah, this is the diplomat. The guy they keep calling the Third Man. The guy he was in the same car as Richard and Dan.
Gotcha.
So that begs the question, because usually when an alien abduction happens, no one else sees it, no one else witnesses it. It could happen in front of 100 people, and only that person it happens to.
Freezing time and so on.
And it's essentially like whatever the force at work that's abducting people has the ability to mass manipulate time and space and perception, and just make people not fucking see something right in front of their face. That's why when people get abducted a lot, they're like trying to scream for help, and they say people are just standing there like in mannequin mode, like they had a fucking stroke. They're just sitting there completely frozen up.
Definitely heard that.
Yeah. What it begs the question of is why the fuck would these aliens all of a sudden not just allow themselves to be seen, but seen by like a shitload of people at once? And Bud's theory is that they wanted specifically, it's like a flex on the politicians that were there watching it happen, and which also is bizarre, because then you start connecting all these events and you're like, so they plan this out over years and like manipulate time, and all these people keep actually meeting each other, but then it gets erased from their memory, and then all of a sudden it's all lined up where they're all in the same place at the same time, and then they abduct her in front of them, and then it doesn't fit your typical working under the shroud of mystery archetype of an alien abduction,
Well, I think A, it's a fascinating story.
Mm-hmm.
B, if it is a true story, if it's true, it's possibly one of the broadest, most interconnected alien conspiracies that I've ever heard.
It's fucking crazy. It really is. Like, and it's not easy to debunk. It's, I did literally probably 50 hours of research on this.
Well,
and it's really, I don't ever see an intersection point where I'm like, well, it smells like bullshit, Then again, I am biased because I believe in you. I've seen a ton of UFOs. I believe in alien stuff.
Hey, but you know what? This podcast isn't named Facts and More. It's not nothing but. It's not called Nothing But Facts.
Yep.
Podcast. It's Absurd and Report. We hear weird shit, and we're gonna talk about it.
Facts and Nothing But the Facts podcast. So, like I said, this whole thing gets even weirder. The woman Marilyn I brought up earlier, the one from the support group that Linda met, that, you know, they didn't know each other before that. In her regressions, or hypnotic regressions, she starts having memories of being abducted with Linda. And not only with Linda, but with an older, kind of Hispanic man with a thick European-esque accent, which fits the physical, the guy fit the physical description of the quote-unquote third man, you know, the guy from Peru. And what Bud does is he'll show them, after they do, like, after she does the hypnosis, he'll put, like, certain amount of photos of, you know, politicians from around the world that kind of fit that description and see who they choose. And he did this same experiment with Linda later on, before he told Linda about it. He was like, you know, point out this guy. And the kid actually, her son, has an incident where a man who fits this description rolls up on him in a car and starts talking to him and, like, wanting to give him, like, a present or whatever. And the kid thought he was going to get, you know, kidnapped or assaulted, and then he fucking runs away. And this guy shows up at their house when Linda and her husband aren't there, and gives the kid, like, a fucking diving helmet that's, you know, one of those, like, old style ones.
The old-timey diver suits?
Yeah, the one where you're, like, in the suit and there's a hose connected to the back of your fucking head and you're walking around the bottom of the ocean.
Yes.
Which is, you know, it's like an $8,000 item or something like that. So the kid doesn't say shit about it. He's just, like, hides it in her closet. She finds it and starts thinking she's going fucking insane.
Right.
And then the kid has to spill the beans about where it came from, you know? So what they figure out through this is, after that woman Marilyn has a regression session, they do one with the kid as well, and they do one with Linda, and not telling any of them that it's interconnected. And they all the kid doesn't really have any memory of it, because in the memory that they all have, the kid's, like, frozen on a table, you know?
No, Jesus.
And Linda's standing there, and Marilyn's standing there. They both tell the story the same way. And they're like, there's a panel, like a table in the end of the room, where they can see, like, there's, you know, 4 or 5 figures sitting there, but they're all in the shadows. But they can see their hands poking out on the desk, and they're all fucking these, like, 4-fingered hands with, you know, no fingernails, long-ass weird fingers. And there's 2 of these, like, instead of the Nordics, there's 2, like, big, like, dark characters standing there, kind of guarding the room as well. And the fucking politician's there as well.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So, like I said, really, like, this is where you're like, okay, how the fuck would all, like, and the politician wrote him a letter, I believe, kind of talking about having a similar memory as well. But the politician will never meet up with Bud, because he doesn't want, you know, he's high profile. He doesn't want people to think he's a fucking kook, you know, and he's in the United Nations. And, you know, one of the things that, when they were like, oh, you know, why did the aliens allow everyone to see this incident, the initial abduction? The thought is they wanted the politicians that were in that motorcade to see it for whatever the fuck reason.
There was a master plan at work.
Like, it doesn't make sense otherwise. Like,
nothing is an accident.
And only certain people remember seeing it, and, you know, it's Brooklyn. It doesn't matter if it's 3 in the fucking morning. There's hundreds of people walking around slamming beers to the face and, you know, doing drugs.
3 o'clock in the morning in my neighborhood, there's people out. It says, you know what I mean? If a UFO swooped down over, you know, uptown Providence, people would know about it.
Yep.
People would see that shit.
Yep. So I believe Bud kind of tried to. What he did was he sent the third man audio cassettes of the 2 regression therapy sessions that he had with Linda and Marilyn, and to see if he would respond and to see if the stories were the same. And then I think he sent him something back where he was like, we're not going to correspond anymore, you know? He's like, I don't want anyone to know, like, about this kind of shit. And so, you know, Bud never really got a verification of that's who it was, but all signs point to, like, that's probably the politician it was the dude from Peru. And, you know, so he, at some point, the third man just stops communicating with him at all. Richard eventually hits him up, because Richard's still obsessed because he has these childhood memories of her in this, like, socialized program where there's just him and Linda are getting observed from the age of, you know, them being like in elementary school all the way till their like mid-20s.
That's
you know?
wild. I don't know. I don't see that. I don't buy. I think they suffered maybe some traumatic shit that happened at the same point in time, and that their brains just got scrambled. If we're dealing with like time looping and jumping around, like I don't think that our bodies are made to, you know, to go under that kind of stress. So if they got abducted and taken somewhere, possibly out of our timeline, man, like just your brain trying to like fix itself around being shattered into a billion pieces.
Well, check this out though. That was one of the first reported cases of that phenomenon of the sociological program of two aliens like observing people from the time they're, you know, they might not see each other for 6 months, but then they're like, oh, like time to shove you guys in this weird room again while we fucking stand here and you guys play
why do you think
with weird
that?
Toys, like using their like minds to levitate objects at each other, and you know,
What could they be studying?
and that's what people don't really know. That's like, it's a mixture of, it seems like they study human emotions quite frequently, and then genetics. And the genetic things can range from them taking eggs or sperm out of you through force, you know, or them making you fucking like crossbreed with something that looks like an alien and a person combined, to a fucking reptilian holding you down and raping you. It could be like any of those things.
Oh wow.
What if humans are just product of alien experiments to begin with?
Well, platypus are definitely.
I mean, like, nothing else.
Stingrays? Have you seen a stingray? You know what I mean?
Nothing else on Earth has the emotional, you know, capability.
What about apes?
Well,
and dolphins?
I don't know.
I mean,
but dogs and cats.
Yeah, dogs as well.
Dogs though are not on the same.
I mean, true. I'm just saying emotions wise. You know?
I think dogs have the same emotions as us. They just lack the ability to express it.
Yeah, they just dumb as hell.
Some dogs are objectively dumber than others.
Yeah.
Golden retrievers. There's nothing going on.
So
there's nothing going on behind those.
I know. I'm not.
Those beady little eyes.
I can't talk about golden retrievers.
Okay, well, goldens are off the table.
The other theory is like, it seems to be a more common theory though, that like their genetics suck and they have some kind of, and they seem to have some kind of like shitty problem not being able to actually breed, and that's why they're fucking taking genetics out of people. Like Linda met a creature like 3 times that her and Marilyn are both like pretty positive it's Linda's relative, like an older sister or something.
But it's a creature?
It's like, they just both described her the same way too without talking to each other. It was like kind of a taller, semi-human, like had hair, but had like alien eyes and kept talking to them psychically and was basically pissed off at... She said it came off as like an older sister scolding her about, you know, revealing things to her kid too quick because they want to keep experimenting on the kid and not have him know anything about it.
What if, you know how like when you're a freshman in high school and they give you like a senior buddy? What if like you, like as an alien, have like your own human that you look out for?
It seems likely. It seems like they attach a crew to a certain person for certain experiments.
That'd be what doppelgangers
but
are.
If she was scolding her like a big sister, that implies that there was some sort of like
relationship.
Yeah, relationship to be had there.
Yeah, it seemed to be like to both of them like they had just met her several times. So, you know, there's not really a lot more that happens besides the incidents I talked about. But the one last thing I'm going to get into is a little later on, like Linda is just having drinks with some other ladies from her apartment complex, and they're like at her house, and she barely told anyone about any of this stuff. Like Bud is one of the only people that knows anything about it. Bud and her husband and the son, because the son is apparently involved in the phenomenon as well. But so she's having drinks with these 2 ladies, and they both start talking about, just randomly, like one of them is like, oh, I think my apartment's haunted. And she's like, well, what do you mean? Like, what have you seen? And the woman's like, she's like, I came to my apartment one day and I saw this like 7-foot tall, like all white skinned thing with no clothes on, with sunken facial features. She said his face looked like if like Abe Lincoln was like a pale, hairless, gross weirdo with something in the face. That's what she described. She compared him to Abe Lincoln.
If Abe Lincoln was less attractive,
Yeah.
oh boy.
Which, might just be the fucking height thing. But she said she looked at it and it looked back.
Chiseled features.
Yeah, she said it looked back at her and then it vanished, and she just kind of tried to put it out of her head. And then another incident happened where she's like making dinner and turns around and sees something run by the doorway that looks like a deformed little child that's naked with a giant gray head. And then just sees it run into the fucking wall and disappear.
And there's video of that exact kind of description that I've seen on YouTube, where it's almost like a Central and South American folklore, where it's this literally like there's these 2 or 3 kids playing in a room, and literally like a child just walks out of a wall out of nowhere, like literally what's the word, materializes and then dematerializes within the camera frame.
That's insane.
It is quite spooky.
Why bother materializing at all if you want to be so unseen?
Well, I mean, like I said, that's why this
jumping.
whole...
They're skipping through time.
It's just like they want to. They listen. Like, I'm tired of them playing their games with us.
That's why this.
Why don't
incident...
you just remain unseen? If you really don't want to be seen, just remain unseen. Don't. Why are you gonna freak us out?
That's the main question about this incident: is why the fuck do they allow themselves to keep being seen when they don't have to?
They're like, oh, did we freak you out?
There's some kind of point they're trying to prove, and and also the thing with her and the regressive memories of her and Richard constantly knowing each other. Like I said, that was the first time that had ever been recorded. And after, he recorded a ton of cases like that, where people would describe the same room. And there's even an incident, I think these girls end up on an Unsolved Mysteries at some point, but there was an incident where there was a woman in England and a woman in America who ended up meeting each other in real life, like when they were older. And they all had the same they knew each other immediately and had all the same fucking memories dating back to when they were 10 years old of the same shit. They're in like a fucking big white room, and there's the same 2 guys guarding them, and they're making them move objects around with their brains and shit, and they're like friends to this day. That was like that was the only highly documented case of it.
That is a pen pal club I'd like to get.
I wouldn't. I don't. That kind of like wraps it up. Like, they never really hear from Richard again. The politician ducks out at one point, and I don't know if this shit still happens with Linda to this day. Like I said, her name got exposed at one point because of fucking assholes that wanted to, basically people that hate Bud Hopkins wanting to decry him, so they just fucking put her name out there into the world for everybody to know. But
she's tough to find information on. She looks like she's pretty much dropped off the face of the planet.
She does exist, and I did find a couple interviews with her. Good. And if you type in Linda Napolitano or the fake last name Quartile on YouTube, there's a couple videos, but she didn't do a lot of interviews. She did a few actual MUFON events with Bud in the mid-90s leading up to the book, and that's where people got put her face out there, put her fucking real name out there. And a lot of people try to decry Bud Hopkins, and because he's not he's not technically a scientist. He got into this as a fucking hobby when he's a full-time artist, and decided that the evidence was so compelling he was just going to become a researcher in that. So the big argument is like, oh, she's just doing this for attention, for profit, and fucking
what profit?
Exactly. She didn't make any money off this. There's never like a movie, like no fucking movie came out about this.
Yeah.
I mean, oh yeah, and then the main one, like I said earlier, where they'll claim like she created this big fucking web of actors and a gigantic ruse. There's no way she could have pulled off. She doesn't have the money and the resources to fucking hire this many actors and liars and keep them all paid off and keep these lies consistent for like a decade. It's too elaborate of a web of lies.
Well, I'm on board.
Yeah.
I buy it. You know what I mean?
Personally, I think it's real.
It seems like it's such a crazy story that you got to be either all in,
or you're like, fuck this,
or you're like, fuck this.
Yeah, there's not really a gray area.
For me,
a gray area. So yeah, Bud Hopkins is now dead. He died in 2011 of cancer. I recommend to get some other backup info on it, you can go on YouTube. There's a lot of Bud Hopkins interviews, and that's kind of your main resource on this. Is just looking up Bud interviews and looking up Linda interviews. Hers are more rare. They're usually just her sitting there chain smoking a cigarette, talking about it in her apartment or whatever. But the Bud ones are extensive. They're like, a few of them are like an hour and a half and shit.
Great.
Yeah.